Hello and welcome to my life journey. This is where I get to share with you some raw stories about my life. I've tried a lot of things in life. I've done many things. I've failed very many times. And I thought I should just share one story with you, raw and candid. And this is the story of the rise and fall of my communications business. Whichever lesson you will pick from it, I don't know. You will tell me in the comment section what you have learned. You will have learned from the story. But I just want to tell you as it happened. And this is not one of those fake motivation stories where someone tells you how they started their restaurant business with one bean. I've had someone else say they started their police station with with a handcuff. Others started their chicken business with a feather. This is not one of those. I'm just giving you this story as it happened. All right, so let's get into it. Some years back, I think I was in third year in university. During that time, the mobile telephony space had just started picking up. Very few people had mobile phones, okay? So it was not as it is today where everyone has a phone. Smartphones were not there yet. So we had a few people having mobile phones, but the idea of mobile phones was beginning to peak. So the number of people with phones was relatively higher than before. During that time, an idea crosses my mind, and because I have a village upbringing and a slum upbringing. So when I was not in the village, when schools would close, I would come to Kawangware where my father was living. The idea of a payphone came into being. And back then we had Safaricom bringing what they used to call the Aditel Adondo Simu ya Jamii. Okay, so the concept of Simu ya Jamii came at that time. These were, booths where we had payphones. Forget about the ancient wired telephone booths where we used to go with coins. Okay, I know. I know those that were born in the 90s coming this way, that might be something you have never encountered. Forget about that. So we had a point in life when we had payphones, okay, where people would want to call their relatives who have mobile phones, but because they don't have mobile phones, or they have mobile phones but they don't have money. I think we need to talk about the process through which the mobile phone space has gone through. Because back in the day, there was a time when the only airtime available was 1,000 bob. And then we had 500 bob for Safaricom at some point. And then we came to 250. And then we came to 100. So there was a time we only had 1,000. There was a time we had 1,000, then 500 came as a smaller denomination of airtime. And then 250, and people would be celebrating. Now they have brought airtime that we can be able to afford. Then we had Kencell, the current Airtel. So Kencell had, I think, 1,200. If I'm not wrong, then there was 600, and then there was 300. Okay, so you can see even the airtime itself was a bit expensive. Then back then we did not have per second billing. That was a new thing that came. So back then we had per minute billing. That means if you called someone and the phone was picked for 1 second, you are charged for the entire minute. So that's where we are coming from. So a time now comes when we have the Adondo, the payphone, the Simu ya Jamii. It used to be called Simu ya Jamii. So now throughout the country we have, it started in Nairobi. So we have green booths, green kiosks, almost measuring a meter by a meter, where people would buy a payphone from Safaricom that used to be called the Adondo Simu ya Jamii. You put in that kiosk, and people come and they pay you as they make calls. Now that Adondo Simu ya Jamii, when it came, it used to retail at 35,000 shillings, if I'm not wrong, 35 or 33,000 shillings. So that was a standard price, a fixed price. So it used to be a very heavy investment for anyone who wanted to get into that business. It was a lucrative business because not many people had got phones. So I am in third year, and I begin to have ideas of joining that particular space. And I'm realizing that now we have people with mobile phones. They want a place to charge their phones. In the slum areas that time, not every residential place had got electricity. So the people who have phones there used to go and charge in shops. Number two, we have people who want to use the payphone. They either have a mobile phone, but they don't have enough airtime. So whatever they have, if they can go to a payphone where they can use the little coins they have to make a call, then that was something that was also happening. Number three, there was potential in the space of selling mobile phone accessories. But do I have money for capital? I don't have. But now the idea has come. So when I was in third year, I was also a beneficiary of the Higher Education Loans Board's loan, the HELB loan. So I remember at some point I received the HELB loan, and I told myself I will look for a payphone. But now that I was not able to afford the 35,000 for the Adondo payphone, thanks to our brothers on River Road, they had come up with some creative way of having an alternative payphone. So this is what they used to do. They used to have the usual desk phones, the traditional desk phones. Then they discovered there was another Siemens phone. I know if you are those people born in that age, I have said you may not have interacted with a Siemens phone. So we used to have a Siemens phone. We had different brands of phones. We had Nokia. Nokia was ruling the airwaves. We had Motorola ruling the airwaves. We had Samsung. We had Siemens. We had Alcatel. We had Sony Ericsson at some point. We had Sagem, yes, we had Sagem, and several others. Okay, so people of my age will understand this. So there was a particular Siemens that had the setting of counting the calling duration as you were calling. And it had the ability to set that when it reaches that particular second, if someone comes and they want to call for 15 seconds, you can be able to set so that when it gets to 15, it cuts. And luckily by that time, Safaricom had introduced the per second billing. So you pay based on the seconds you make a call. So there was a Siemens, I think it was Siemens C25. So our brothers and sisters on River Road discover a way of dismantling this Siemens and mapping it onto a payphone, you know, a desk phone. So they would go and collect bodies of desk phones. Then they dismantle the inside. They also dismantle the Siemens mobile phone. So they stick the screen of the mobile phone and the what do we call them? We call them the motherboard and the inside of the phone. They stick it so that the screen of the mobile phone coincides with the screen of the payphone, of the desk phone, the body. Okay, those phones we find in offices. So a dismantled one. Then they do their wiring. They connect the buttons of the mobile phone to map with the numbers on the desk phone shell, the body that they have. So that makes it possible to now dial the numbers on the desk phone, and they go dialing the mobile phone that has now been mapped on the screen. So now you can be able to use the display and nobody knows inside there is a mobile phone. Okay, so now that one used to sell at, it came at 5,000, then it came down to 4,500, it came down again to 3,500. So I bought mine when they were selling at 3,500. Because I don't have money to go for the Adondo, but because Adondo was being controlled by Safaricom, the calling rates for Adondo were relatively cheaper than now if I'm using the the converted Siemens that now looks like a desk phone. But the desk phone allowed you to also do the business, because that was the only phone at that time that had the capacity to set that when a call reaches this time, it will disconnect. And many customers that time used to come and say, hey, I want to make a call of these seconds. So that when it gets to that second, you either disconnect manually for them, or you have a phone that has a setting where you can disconnect. So I get the help loan, and part of my focus is to buy that phone from River Road. And so I get myself that phone. Now the kiosks from Safaricom, the ones that were running the Adondo, were special kiosks. So when you buy the Adondo, then you get the kiosk, the special kiosk from Safaricom. But now we also had some other landlords or other creative people who also created smaller kiosks, 1 meter by 1 meter, and painted it green, to look like a Simu ya Jamii booth. So I also found a landlord who had, that fabricated 1 meter by 1 meter kiosk, and he agreed to give me the kiosk at 500 shillings per month. So I picked the kiosk somewhere in Kawangware, and that's where I placed my Simu ya Jamii. That was Kawangware, Gatina, the side of Gatina Primary, for those that understand that particular place. So that's where I get to put my Simu ya Jamii that time. So I put someone there to do the controlling of the business, the controlling of the Simu ya Jamii. So when we started running the Simu ya Jamii, I'm in school, so sometimes when I don't have lessons, I come, I sit there, I get to see what is happening, and business is beginning to pick, but I have a challenge. The same places where people would go to make the calls is the same places where people would also be buying scratch cards. Those days it was not possible to buy airtime by M-Pesa. Actually, M-Pesa had not come. Okay. And I think it was around that time that M-Pesa came, and it also took long before it even picked. So the services of buying airtime from M-Pesa were non-existent. So people used to buy physical scratch cards. So now I have a kiosk where people can come and make calls. But now when they come asking for airtime, the scratch cards, I don't have. So now the scratch cards, I need to look for money and also begin to have a stock for scratch cards. By that time, I've exhausted all my money, because I used to rely on that help loan entirely for payment of fees, and probably a portion of it for my survival. Now, the portion for my survival I've used to buy the payphone. So now I have nothing. I'm just praying that the business will pick so that it can sustain me. By that time, Safaricom had created the 50 shillings airtime, and that was a wave. It was something people were celebrating about, because for a long time 100 had been the biggest, rather the smallest denomination of scratch card. So they had just introduced the 50 shillings scratch card, 50 bob. Now a strip had 5 of them, and they used to give us a discount of 2 shillings. So when we go to buy from the wholesalers, they sell us one card at 48 shillings. So we make a profit of 2 shillings. One strip has got 5 of them. Okay, so we have got 5 of them selling at 240, and then you realize 10 shillings profit. So I looked for 240 shillings, and I bought the first stripe that has 5 scratch cards of 50 shillings. That time I was not able to buy the ones for 100. So customers that would come looking for the one for 100, I would have to give them 2 of 50 shillings. But now 2 of 50 shillings gives you profit of 4 shillings. But if you had 100 used to give profit of 5 shillings. I don't know if that is still the case now. So I remember that was my first entry point into selling of airtime, the scratch cards. So my beginning capital is 3,500 for the payphone, 500 for rent, and 240 for the scratch cards. So as time progressed, I had a bigger hustle because sometimes the scratch cards are sold in the first hour of the morning. So my person has to close the shop and go looking for where they are selling the cards from the wholesale before they can come and open. By the time they are coming to open, we have lost a number of customers who came calling or who needed the airtime. But over time, Safaricom had also employed people to be salespeople. So they were moving around with scratch cards, and if you are a credible person, they can give you on credit. And then in the evening, they come and collect their money. So that's how then I landed the chance to be able to have airtime that I can be selling throughout the day. So they would now come and give me airtime. A few of them for 100 bob, a few of them for 50 shillings. And then so I would have something to sell. Then in the evening, I give them their money and I have my profit. So that's how I started using other people's money to do business. So after a while, the business actually grew to some point that the one-by-one room became a smaller room. Because now, I remember in the beginning I told us that I also had, I had seen the opportunity of selling accessories. So the accessories were not going to fit into this one-by-one meter box. Now it also did not have electricity, so it was not possible for me to charge mobile phones for people. So now I look for another space. I want to expand. That was after several months, close to a year, being in that smaller booth. So I look for another bigger space, and that's when I found a bigger shop in Kawangware, but now the opposite side of Gatina. That's where we have Muslim, for those that are familiar with that place. So in Muslim, I get a spacious room where I partition and I put my payphone. And that time we had started a new semester, so I had some money coming. So I now went and stocked my accessory side of business. I bought a few power extensions for doing mobile charging and a few chargers for mobile charging. So now my shop had a payphone, had airtime, had mobile accessories, had mobile charging services. So the revenue streams have now increased. And over time, the place became so busy that some days I started realizing profit of 1,000 shillings per day. And that for a student was a lot of money back in the day. This is a student who would survive with 100 shillings for a full week. Eating in the mess. So that happened again for a while, and the business was growing. The business was getting stocked. It was beginning to look nice. So now that looks like the rise and rise of that particular business. Everything is now looking in the positive direction. Now we are about to hit the turning point so that things begin to fall. Remember, I called this story the rise and fall of my communications business. So one morning, my landlord approaches me, and the landlord tells me that he is planning to demolish the houses that we were in. Those were mabati structures on the roadside. He's planning to demolish them and put up permanent structures so that we can come and occupy permanent structures. Okay, so I get excited because I was now beginning to develop growth, perspectives. I was beginning to have ideas of how this business can grow, how I can become a wholesaler within a short period of time. So I'm excited, I am ambitious, I can see opportunities here. So the guy convinces me that he actually wants to demolish all the houses that were there. So he tells me that he's giving us notice so that we can be able to move out temporarily, and then we will come back. Of course, the houses are his, so if he also has his own plans for developing the place. So we move out. I pick the business and I move the business out. But because I don't want the business to just close, because I don't know how long it will take, so I try looking for a place, but I can't see a place. So I find myself moving the business from Kawangware to Kangemi. So that's where I found another space. But now Kangemi was more expensive compared to Kawangware. So the rent I was paying in my place in Kawangware was 1,500 bob, the Mabati structure. Now I go to Kangemi, I find a house of 3,500 shillings. A permanent structure. I'm telling myself, let me see if this business can peak here. If it does not, once my landlord has done what he has said he wants to do, then I will go back and occupy my space. But let me tell you what happened back in Kawangware. What the landlord was doing was actually trying to chase me out so that he brings his own brother to run the same business, now that he realized I was making a lot of money from that business. So I visit that place about 2 weeks since I left, and I find a shop running the exact business I was running. So when I get there, my customers are still there. They know me. So they tell me, hey, this guy played you. He brought his brother doing the same business, but we have refused. We are not going to buy from him. So they were trying to see where I went. And true to their word, the brother did not last in that shop for 2 months. The shop had closed. And the landlord did not construct the permanent structures he had promised to construct for a very long period of time. I've not been there lately, so I don't know whether later, that happened. Now, that's the first part of this story, what you would call the rise and rise of my communication business. So the landlord has come, the landlord has told me to move out, and now I am moving out to Kangemi. So I want you to catch me on the second part. And the second part is how life happened after I landed in Kangemi. What we would now want to call the fall and fall of that particular business, because my movement to Kangemi is what now began to mark my downfall in that particular business. And that was an epic experience. So do not fail to follow me for the second part, because that second part is when a lot of things happen. I get to be arrested like a criminal. I get to really face a lot of things. So be sure to come back for the second part. Let me know the lessons you have learned from this story so far, if it has any lessons. If it does not, also let me know that it has no lessons. But if it's also entertaining, you can feel free to let me know. Yeah, but that is the rise and fall part 1 of my communications business. So see you when I'm doing the second part, the life when I land in Kangemi, so that we see how business happened and how I became a criminal and how things happened. See you soon. You can do better.